Welcome back to Calculus 1, and welcome to week 13 of our time together. Well, we're almost to the end of the course. Soon I'm going to be posting the final exam, which will give you a few weeks to work on that. But I wanted to say a little bit about where we are. Last week, we looked at how antidifferentiation gives us the fundamental theorem of calculus, which lets us evaluate integrals way more easily than by going back to the definition in terms of Riemann sums. This week, we continue on that quest. We're going to look at u-substitution, which is one really great technique for actually finding some complicated antiderivatives. Now, in light of this, I also wanted to say a little bit about how the course as a whole has been organized. Remember, way back at the beginning of the course, we gave the definition of limit in terms of epsilons and deltas. But very quickly, we abandoned those epsilons and deltas, and we gave you a bunch of techniques for evaluating limits. Things like the limit of a sum is the sum of the limits if the limits exist. And then once we had easier techniques for playing around with limits, we did some applications of limits, a big one being the limit of a difference quotient, which was the definition of the derivative. But we didn't usually calculate the derivative by going back to that definition. Usually we used our techniques of differentiation, like the derivative of a sum is the sum of derivatives, to make calculating derivatives way easier. And then we did some applications of differentiation, right? Things like optimization problems, related rates problems. And then we did the definition of integration, right, in terms of Riemann sums. But those Riemann sums were way too complicated. So we very quickly abandoned Riemann sums for a better technique involving the fundamental theorem of calculus. And this week, with u-substitution, we learn another technique for finding antiderivatives. That is another technique for evaluating definite integrals. And in the last couple weeks, we're going to look at some more techniques and some applications of integration. There's not much time left. Hang in there. We're all going to make it to the end together.